story of Cain and Abel is an allegory. It's what is known as an allegory, as are many of the stories from Genesis. Adam and Eve, Noah and the ark, etc. All allegories. An allegory is a story or a poem or a picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. From this, we learn to extract some moral lesson. To do so, we have to look past these images that were just conjured up. He slew him, then it sounds like God is damning him. If you take a literal interpretation of this, you're really going to have a different, you're going to walk away with a different interpretation, a different set of principles than if you take a metaphysical interpretation. Not saying it won't be useful, it'll just be much different. So we also must understand that in all of these stories, we play all parts. We're Cain, we're Abel, we're Jehovah, or God. We're all of these parts, all are within us. So Cain is the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, right? The first characters we find out about in the Bible are Adam and Eve. Well, these are their sons. Okay, Cain and Abel are their sons. So Cain represents the earthly or the material domain. His focus is the body. He is a tiller of the ground. He prepares and he cultivates. That's what a tiller does. The ground is the earthly domain. So he tills and cultivates the earthly domain. His body has to be strong and developed for this type of work, and his consciousness is focused on the earthly realm. That's Cain in a nutshell. Okay? Abel is his younger brother, and Abel means breath. Abel means breath. His focus is on the mind. And he represents higher levels of consciousness than his brother Cain, but he does not represent the highest levels of consciousness. He does not, at this point in the story, represent Christ consciousness, as we would say here in Unity. But he is a keeper of the sheep. No, he does not own the sheep, right? He doesn't own the sheep. He keeps them, presumably for their creator, God. He's a steward, meaning that he looks after them in service to another. These levels of consciousness are above the material but below Christ consciousness. And again, another interpretation can say, oh, you know what, Cain represents grace consciousness and Abel represents Christ consciousness. Not so. We'd be missing a nuance if I did that to you today. But again, you get the message. I just want you to get a deeper message today. So that's why I'm making this distinction. So we can think of Abel. Right? You want to think of Abel? Think of him as evolving states of consciousness. Okay? So, Cain and Abel are not friends. They're not strangers. They are brothers. Okay? That's significant because there is a close relationship between the two. And most naturally, the firstborn, Cain, material consciousness, would give way to the evolving states of consciousness. It's a natural evolution. Our next scene finds offerings being made in the story, if you remember when I read it, to God or to Jehovah from the brothers. So what did each offer? Okay, Cain offers the fruit of or from the ground. So he's giving something of the material realm. Okay, bear that in mind. Abel, his younger brother, gives his firstborn of his flock and the fat from the calf thereof. So let's look at this. The firstborn son, Cain, given authority, and in many cultures historically, the firstborn son is favored in the family. My dad is the oldest of 10. His brothers never let me forget. Oh, Chick, his name is Frank, they call him Chick in Italian. Chick's favorite. Chick can do no wrong. He was the firstborn son. This Italian family took a lot of pride in their firstborn son. So I know this to be true personally. He is clearly a farmer who has crops. Yeah? And what does he offer? He brings to God the fruit from the ground. So in keeping with his material focused, self-centered self, he doesn't bring the gorgeous pieces of fruit from the top of the tree, no. Instead, he brings the fruit that has already fallen to the ground. What may have been there for a while. What likely would be discarded. That's what he gives. That is his tithe. That is his offering. what he will sow into the universe, and in so doing, firmly set off the law of cause and effect. He gives it to Jehovah. And what is Jehovah? What does God represent? Well, one of the things God represents is law, divine law. He is the very law, in this particular case, of cause and effect. I give something, I manifest something. This action on Cain's behalf, as it does in all cases, will set into motion manifestation of some sort. Something will be manifested here. Sure enough. And what about Abel? What does Abel give? He, remember, who is the keeper of sheep, offers God his firstborn, the firstborn of his flock, and the fat of the calf. So the fat from that calf. Fat in this way represents abundance, bounty, blessings. That's what fat represents here. So to give of the firstborn, not the runt of the litter, but most likely the biggest of the litter is what he gives. Probably something that would be hard for Abel to do without. He is truly making a sacrifice. Again, the law of cause and effect with this offering has been put into motion. Okay? So we see this start to develop. So true to form of their individual levels of consciousness, we see one brother being quite stingy and the other being quite generous. Because they are feeding into divine law, whether they know it or not, they will both certainly reap the rewards of their actions in kind. No doubt about it. Just like there's no doubt about it when we do it today. So the first response to the law of cause and effect, to these gestures in our story, is from God, our source. And again, God reacts, as in every case, to the gesture. Cause and effect is always operative. You don't have to know it. You don't have to believe it. It's true. He's pleased. This is the reaction. He's pleased and respects Abel's gestures. However, not Cain's. There is no positive response or effect, if you like, for Cain. Only Abel. In fact, there's no response at all. So this is interesting. Again, another nuance that we may not see upon a quick reading of this. Is there then an order of magnitude in this law of cause and effect? If you sow good seeds, would they be responded to more quickly than if you sow negative seeds? I mean, this is, I always would say that the universe is pushing us to our good. So is it going to respond more abundantly to our good than to, I don't want to say bad, but to sowing negative seeds, not giving my best, giving fruit from the ground? Very interesting. Does Cain then, when he notices, hey, I didn't get a response, Abel got all this like good loving, I got nothing. Does he then go to God to seek wisdom or understanding? Why? What did I do wrong? Why didn't I get a response? No, that's not what he does. What does he do? He gets angry and depressed. He pouts. In fact, God comes to him. Not only does he not go to God, God comes to him and tries to impart wisdom on him and says, don't be so sad. You can right this ship. All is not lost. Again, there's always time to correct our mistakes. There's always time to correct. All is never lost. As long as you have breath, it's never lost. God is teaching him about divine law of cause and effect and how it works and how he could use it to his success.